He always felt as if life was moving faster than he could ever catch up. Every morning, the sun would rise over his small, crowded neighborhood, yet he felt as though it were shining on everyone else's life except his own. His home was modest, filled with love but also with the constant stress of bills, responsibilities, and unspoken struggles. Growing up, he had watched people around him accept mediocrity as if it were inevitable, listening to their excuses, their complaints, and their stories of lost opportunity. He had promised himself he would be different, that he would reach beyond the limitations imposed by circumstance. Yet, when he looked in the mirror, he realized that fear and hesitation had quietly taken root inside him, forming invisible barriers that no one else could see. School was a challenge, not because he lacked intelligence, but because his focus was often stolen by doubt and distraction. He had dreams, fragile and easily broken, that he didn't dare share with anyone. He wanted to become someone meaningful, someone who could make a difference, someone whose life could inspire others. Yet procrastination, self-doubt, and constant distractions chained him to a life of inaction. He kept telling himself, "I'll start tomorrow," but tomorrow always seemed to arrive with new challenges and fresh excuses. Nights were the hardest. Lying awake, he would imagine his future and feel a knot of fear in his stomach. It wasn't the uncertainty that terrified him, it was the possibility that he might waste his life without even trying. One evening, while scrolling through his phone in a restless state, he stumbled upon a quote that struck him like a lightning bolt. "Your future is watching you. Make it proud." The words resonated in a way nothing else ever had. Suddenly, he saw his future self not as an abstract concept, but as a real presence, silently observing his choices, silently judging his actions or inactions. Every hour wasted on distractions, every excuse, every moment of fear and hesitation was being recorded by that silent observer. The thought was uncomfortable, almost unbearable, yet it sparked something he hadn't felt in years, a sense of accountability that came from within, not from anyone else. That night, he couldn't sleep. He imagined his future self, older, wiser, disappointed, and frustrated by the decisions he had not yet made. He realized that he alone was responsible for the life he wanted. Waiting for motivation, waiting for luck, waiting for someone else to push him forward, these were luxuries he could no longer afford. The quote had done something remarkable. It shifted his perspective from victimhood to ownership. The future wasn't distant. It was actively watching him, silently urging him to rise, to act, and to take control. He didn't transform overnight. There were no grand epiphanies or instant changes. But he made a quiet promise, one that he would repeat to himself in the mornings and the evenings, and whenever fear whispered in his ear, he would start acting as if his future self were watching every move, every choice, every second. Every decision, no matter how small, became significant. Even the smallest efforts, a book read, a skill practiced, a task completed, felt like steps toward honoring the person he was destined to become. For the first time, he understood that every wasted moment had consequences beyond the present. Each choice contributed to the story his future self would remember. The realization was both terrifying and liberating. The life he wanted wasn't going to arrive magically. He had to earn it, moment by moment, decision by decision. That night, sitting alone in his small room, he made peace with the fact that he could no longer hide behind excuses, fear, or indecision. He had a silent witness in the future, and it was waiting to see whether he would rise or remain stagnant. That awareness marked the beginning of something profound. The boy who had once drifted through life, letting days pass without purpose, was awakening. Not to instant success, not to fame or fortune, but to responsibility, the responsibility to act, to grow, and to honor the life he was yet to live. And in that awakening, a small spark ignited, a spark that would grow into the unstoppable fire of determination, discipline, and purpose that would guide every step of his journey forward. Change came quietly, almost imperceptibly, like the first light of dawn, creeping into a dark room. He began taking small steps, each one deliberate, each one a quiet rebellion against the habits that had kept him stagnant for so long. Waking up early became his first act of defiance against the life he had been drifting through. Mornings were no longer a time to linger in bed scrolling through distractions. They became sacred hours dedicated to learning, reflection, and preparation for the future. He was determined to create. Each day, he wrote down his goals, no matter how small, and made it a rule to complete at least one task that brought him closer to them. At first, it was exhausting. Old habits tugged at him relentlessly, whispering that the effort was pointless. But the thought of his future self, watching and waiting, refused to let him surrender. He faced setbacks almost immediately. Rejections, failures, and disappointments tested his resolve constantly. An email turned down, a project rejected, or a goal unmet would have crushed him before. But now each obstacle became a lesson. He learned to ask, "What can I take from this? How can I grow from it?" Failure was no longer a verdict on his worth. It was information, feedback, and a guide for his next steps. Slowly, he began to understand that resilience was built not in comfort, but in struggle. Every challenge was a mirror showing him where he needed to improve, every difficulty an opportunity to strengthen his resolve. Discipline became his most reliable companion. He realized that motivation was fleeting, unreliable, and often deceitful. On days when he felt no inspiration, discipline carried him forward. Waking up early, studying, practicing, working on his skills even when he didn't feel like it became acts of loyalty to the future self who was watching him. He began to understand that success was not an accident or a matter of luck. It was the result of consistent, deliberate actions taken day after day. Each completed task, no matter how small, was a brick laid in the foundation of the person he was becoming. The shift in mindset extended beyond action into identity. He no longer saw himself as someone who procrastinated, someone who waited for permission, or someone defined by his past failures. He began to think of himself as a creator, an architect of his own life, someone whose choices today would determine the quality of his tomorrow. Every decision carried weight. Every moment of focus, every deliberate effort, was an investment in the person he wanted to become. He felt accountable not to the world, not to others, but to the silent observer of his own future. That accountability became the most powerful form of motivation he had ever known. People around him noticed subtle changes, though he paid little attention to their opinions. His posture was more upright, his gaze more confident, his speech clearer and more purposeful. He didn't seek approval. He had begun earning it from himself. He had learned the rare lesson that external recognition is fleeting, but self-respect and personal integrity are permanent. Each success, each habit formed, each challenge overcome, reinforced a growing belief he could become someone extraordinary, and he was willing to do the work to prove it. The journey was not without struggle. Doubts crept in at times, old fears whispered that he wasn't good enough, and moments of exhaustion threatened to undo his progress. Yet, every time he felt himself slipping, he imagined his future self watching intently, silently expecting him to rise. That mental image became a compass, guiding him when the path seemed uncertain. It reminded him that growth is not a linear journey, and that resilience is forged in the effort to keep moving forward even when the road is difficult. By the end of this stage, he was no longer the boy who had procrastinated and doubted himself. He had become someone quietly relentless, someone committed to his goals not out of vanity or ego, but out of responsibility to the life he had yet to live. The seeds of discipline, patience, and resilience had taken root. He had learned the crucial lesson that the future is not a distant dream. It is an active observer of every choice made today. And with each deliberate, persistent step, he was earning the life his future self deserved. By the time he reached this stage of his journey, the man he had once been, the one defined by hesitation, fear, and wasted time, felt like a distant memory. His life had changed not because the world had become easier, but because he had transformed from within. Every decision, every act of discipline, every moment spent learning and growing, had compounded into a foundation strong enough to support the person he had always wanted to become. He was no longer drifting through life. He was moving with intention, clarity, and purpose. The future that had once been a silent observer had become his guide, a reflection of the life he had worked tirelessly to create. Challenges and obstacles still appeared, as they always do. Life had not removed difficulties. It had only changed his ability to face them. Where he once would have felt overwhelmed or paralyzed by setbacks, he now approached each problem with focus and resilience. A difficult project, an unexpected rejection, or a personal disappointment was no longer a reason to quit. Instead, these moments were opportunities to test his growth, to practice patience, and to refine his strategies. He had learned that being unstoppable does not mean never encountering problems. It means having the strength, discipline, and mindset to move forward regardless. He had also discovered a deeper truth. Success is not measured solely by material wealth or public recognition. The true victory lay in the alignment between his present actions and the vision he held for his future self. Every habit he cultivated, every skill he mastered, every challenge he overcame, was a step toward becoming the person he wanted to see in the mirror. Integrity, perseverance, and self-accountability became the most powerful markers of his success. He realized that his future self had been watching all along, silently recording each decision, each choice, and each effort. Living in alignment with that silent observer had transformed his life from ordinary to extraordinary. This transformation was not sudden. It had been forged over years of struggle, reflection, and deliberate action. He remembered the nights spent wrestling with self-doubt, the mornings when he forced himself out of bed despite exhaustion, and the countless small decisions that had seemed insignificant at the time. Now, looking back, he saw the profound impact of those moments. Each small step had built momentum, shaping a life that once seemed impossible. His future self, which had once been a distant concept, had become a living standard guiding him, motivating him, and holding him accountable. He also understood that unstoppable is not synonymous with perfection. There were still moments of fear, uncertainty, and failure. But these moments no longer defined him. They refined him. He had built resilience, and resilience meant trusting that he could endure, adapt, and rise again, no matter how difficult the challenge. He had learned to embrace discomfort as a teacher, setbacks as lessons, and struggle as a necessary part of growth. Every challenge was a reminder of how far he had come and how capable he had become. Gratitude and reflection became his companions. He honored the struggles of his past, understanding that they had been essential in shaping his present. He celebrated his wins, no matter how small, recognizing that progress was the accumulation of countless efforts, often unseen by the world. His life had become a testament to the power of accountability, discipline, and the relentless pursuit of growth. He had learned that the future does not wait for us, it watches, silently expecting us to rise to the person we are capable of becoming. From uncertainty to confidence, from hesitation to decisive action, he had transformed completely. His journey taught him that every day matters, every decision counts, and every moment shapes the life that is yet to come. He had become unstoppable not because life had grown easier, but because he had learned to live intentionally, guided by the silent witness of his future self. He had learned the ultimate truth: the only way to honor your future is to act today with courage, focus, and unwavering determination. And now, as he stood on the threshold of his own potential, he knew that his best life was not just a dream, it was being built in every choice he made, in every action he took, in every moment he refused to let fear control him.